When I opened my eyes in the hospital, everything hurt: my ribs, my legs, my lungs, even my eyelashes. But the worst pain wasn't physical. It was realizing that I had no missed calls, no frantic messages, no one pacing outside my room, not even my dad. 3 days after the crash, he finally walked in. I was ready to cry from relief, but he didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't hold my hand. Instead, he sighed, looked around the room, and said, "Do you still have that emergency fund? Brooke's in trouble. She really needs help." That's when something inside me cracked. Not a bone, not a bruise, but a piece of belief I didn't know I still had because I hadn't died in the crash. But in that moment, I realized I'd been invisible to my own family for years. It had been a normal Tuesday. I'd stayed late at the office to finalize a code deployment. The sun was already dipping when I finally got on the road, dreaming of leftover pasta and a long hot shower. I remember checking my mirrors at the intersection. I had the green light, then metal screeching, shattering. A massive black SUV ran the red and plowed into my driver's side. I don't remember the impact, just a blur, then white sirens. Pain like nothing I'd ever known. I woke up sometime later with tubes in my arms and a monitor beeping near my head. They said I'd blacked out: internal bleeding, 3 broken ribs, fractured femur. A miracle. I'd survived it all. The nurse asked if I wanted her to contact my emergency contact. I said, "My dad, Thomas Collins." She nodded and left the room. That was on a Tuesday night. By Friday, he still hadn't shown up. Not a call, not a text. I kept thinking, maybe he was traveling. Maybe he didn't get the message. Maybe it was just taking time. But on Saturday morning, my nurse said she'd called him again and he'd picked up. She paused. Her face looked careful, like she was trying not to say something. He said he was aware. She told me he didn't ask for details, just said he was dealing with something else right now. That something else I'd later find out was my sister Brooke's financial disaster. I couldn't eat that day. I couldn't even cry. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering how many ways someone could be erased from their own family. I wasn't angry yet. I was suspended in shock. Tessa Reed, my best friend from college, who now worked in the same hospital, was the only one who came. She brought me a stuffed fox from the gift shop, said it was ugly but loyal like her. "Your family know you're here, right?" she asked carefully, fluffing my pillow. I didn't answer. I didn't have one. On the 4th day, just after the nurse helped me sit up and change the dressing on my side, I heard footsteps approaching my room. I turned expecting Tessa Reed. Instead, it was my dad. Thomas Collins pressed shirt-sharp jaw phones still in hand. He looked like he'd just stepped out of a boardroom. I waited for the emotion to hit me. Relief, maybe something, but all I felt was confusion. He didn't rush to my side. No hug, no frantic questions. He just stood there looking around like the hospital room was mildly inconvenient. "Hey," he said finally, eyes landing on the floor in my arm. "You look awake." "Yeah," I replied, my voice. 4 days now. He blinked. "Right. They told me." He pulled the chair closer, sat with a sigh. I watched him shift in place like this was some sort of negotiation he didn't want to lead. Then he said it. "Brooke is in a bit of a situation. She made some bad decisions with her ex-investment stuff. Pretty bad fallout. She needs help." I didn't say anything. He went on. "You've always been the stable one. You've got savings, right? Something from that job of yours. She just needs enough to hold her over, tide her through the storm." The words hung in the air, heavy and ridiculous. I stared at him. I was sitting in a hospital bed with stitches along my stomach and screws in my leg, and he was asking me for money to help Brooke. I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't breathe deep enough for it not to hurt. "I almost died, Dad," I finally said. "And you're here to talk about Brooke's money problems." He raised his eyebrows like I was being unreasonable. "Of course I care. You were in an accident. but Brooke is in free fall. You don't know what she's going through. Oh, no, I said bitter. Just a fractured skull and some internal bleeding. But let's talk about how hard this is for Brooke. He looked genuinely baffled, as if he truly didn't understand why I wasn't instantly offering a check. She's your sister, he said sharply. You two used to be close. No, Dad. I used to clean up after her. I turned away and stared at the window. I couldn't look at him anymore. He didn't stay much longer, just muttered something about letting me rest, and walked out. No, I'm glad you're alive. No, I was scared. Just Brooke. Always Brooke. After my dad left, I stared at the ceiling for hours. The machines beeped. The hallway outside was a blur of motion. A nurse poked in to adjust my IV, but I barely noticed. My chest ached, not just from the cracked ribs, but from something deeper, older. It wasn't just what he said. It was the fact that I'd expected more. Even after everything, even after a lifetime of being invisible, unless someone else needed something, I kept replaying his words over and over. Brooke is in a bit of a situation. You've always been the stable one. She just needs help. As if I were some sort of family piggy bank. As if surviving a car crash made me more useful, not more worthy of care. I thought of my savings account, the money I'd built carefully over a decade working in tech. I wasn't rich, but I'd been disciplined, budgeting every month, skipping vacations, delaying fun, all to build a future for myself, not to bail out Brooke from another situation. This wasn't the first time either. There was a memory vivid sharp from high school. I had just gotten accepted into a competitive summer robotics program. It was expensive, sure, but I'd earned a partial scholarship. I'd been so proud. Then Brooke got caught shoplifting. Our parents grounded me, took the tuition money I'd raised through tutoring and redirected it to help her recover her reputation. They said it was a family emergency that my opportunity could wait. It never came back. And then in college, when she dropped out of her third program, I was told to drive 6 hours to pack her dorm room because my parents were too stressed. I did it. I always did it because back then, I thought being useful would earn me love. I thought if I showed up enough, they'd finally see me. But now, lying in a hospital bed with metal pins in my leg, I knew better. I wasn't their daughter. I was a resource, a contingency plan, a safety net they didn't bother maintaining. Tessa Reed came by again that evening. She brought soup and a charger. You okay? She asked, her tone soft but pointed. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, No, but I think I'm finally done pretending I am. She just nodded and sat beside me in silence. And for the first time in a long while, I let someone stay without needing to earn it. The next morning, my dad came back. This time, he didn't knock. Just walked in like it was his office. He had coffee in his hand, not for me, and a folder tucked under his arm. His face was set like stone. I didn't even bother sitting up. My leg throbbed from the night, and my energy was running low. I've been thinking. He began not even asking how I was feeling. Brooke really needs a win right now. She's in a rough place, Avery, and this could follow her for years if we don't get ahead of it. I closed my eyes for a second. He ignored the question. I talked to the lawyer handling her situation. He said, if we can settle part of the debt quickly, it might avoid going public. Reputation matters. You know that. Especially for young women. If we act fast, I'm not giving her anything. The words came out flat. Final. He froze. The shift in his posture was subtle. A small tightening of the jaw, a narrowing of the eyes. He hadn't expected resistance. Not from me. I'm not asking you to give it away, he said, voice rising. It's a loan. You'll get it back. No, I said again, more clearly this time. You didn't come when I almost died. Dad. You didn't call. You didn't text. You showed up 4 days later asking for money. He scoffed. Don't be dramatic. You're alive, aren't you? That was it. The moment something in me snapped. I could have not been. I said louder now. But that wouldn't have changed a thing. Would it? You still would have been there for Brooke. You'd cry for her. You'd bankrupt yourself for her. And me, I'd be a name in the obituary column you skimmed while looking for bail options. He stepped back slightly, not out of guilt, just surprise. He didn't recognize this version of me. I'm not the one who's failed this family, he said coldly. You're letting bitterness make you cruel. No, I whispered. Bitterness is what happens when you spend your whole life being told you don't matter unless someone else needs something from you. There was a long silence. Then, in the lowest voice I'd ever heard him use, he said, If you let Brooke fall, she won't be the only one we cut off. I looked straight into his eyes. You already cut me off a long time ago. You just didn't notice. He left without another word, not even a glance back. And for once, I didn't crumble after he walked away. After my dad left, the silence in the hospital room felt different. He hadn't yelled when I said no. He didn't beg. He threatened. And I realized that was the only language he'd ever used with me. Not always with words, sometimes with silence, sometimes with expectation, but always, if you don't give, you don't belong. I sank back into the pillows, letting the weight of years settle around me. My body was healing slowly, but my mind was replaying every scene that had led me to this point. A life built on being the second choice, or worse, the convenient choice. I thought about senior year. I'd been accepted to University of Washington with a scholarship, not full, but enough to make it work. I was ready to go, ready to leave Oregon and everything behind. But Brooke got pregnant and my parents said, You can defer, just 1 year. Help us get through this. So I did. I stayed, worked, helped babysit, took night classes instead. Brooke moved on. She broke up with the guy, moved to another city, and got an apartment funded by our parents. I never went to University of Washington. They said by then I'd found a groove here anyway. They said it like it was a compliment, like giving up a dream made me mature. Then there was the Christmas. Brooke crashed my car because she was too drunk to drive her own. My parents made me lie to insurance and say I'd been the one behind the wheel because she already had a DUI. Avery, you don't want her life to be ruined, do you? They fixed the car, but they never fixed the trust. And now, after all those years, I was lying in a hospital bed with metal screws in my bones, and they still didn't see me as someone worth showing up for, just someone useful, someone available. Not once had anyone in my family said, Thank you for those sacrifices. Not once had they asked if I wanted to give. They just took because I let them. Tessa Reed came in around noon. She brought better soup this time, creamy tomato from the cafe downstairs. She saw my face and didn't ask questions, just handed me a spoon and sat quietly. That's what real care looks like, I thought. Someone who shows up without needing something. Halfway through the meal, I said, I think I'm done. Tessa Reed, with the soup, with pretending this family loves me. She didn't flinch, just reached over and squeezed my hand. You don't owe anyone your pain, she said. For the first time in my life, I believed it. 3 days after I was discharged, I came home to find them waiting. My crutches clicked against the hallway floor as I limped up the last steps of my apartment building. I was exhausted, bone-deep tired. All I wanted was silence my couch and maybe some terrible Netflix. Instead, I saw my dad standing at my door. Brooke was beside him. She wore oversized sunglasses and clutched her designer purse like it was a lifeline. He held a folder again. I froze. They must have called the hospital and gotten my discharge time. No one had told me they'd be waiting. Avery, my dad, said like nothing had happened. We just need 5 minutes. I didn't move. I already said no. Brooke stepped forward, her voice trembling in that performative way she'd mastered since childhood. I know I messed up, she said. I'm not proud of it. But I'm your sister. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I looked at her polished, perfect, panicked. The same girl who had taken everything, even when she didn't ask. You weren't at the hospital, I said quietly. Her face flinched just a bit. Then she put on the victim mask. We didn't know how bad it was. Dad said you were fine because you didn't ask. My dad's tone sharpened. Don't turn this into some moral crusade. Your sister's future is at stake and mine wasn't, I snapped. You didn't even check if I'd walk again. But now you're here. What to beg? To bully? We're family, he said, jaw tight. Family means stepping up when it counts. Funny, I said. It only counts when you need something. Brooke started crying. Real or not? I couldn't tell anymore. My father didn't try to stop her. Instead, he took one final step forward. You think money makes you better than us? You think having a job and a savings account gives you the right to abandon your sister? No, I said, but it gives me the right to decide who I give my life to. He opened his mouth again, probably to deliver one more threat, but I held up my phone. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. His face went blank. He stared at me like I'd just spoken a language he couldn't understand. Then he turned to Brooke and muttered, Let's go. They left without another word. I stood there in silence for a while, hands still clenched around my phone, heart pounding. A part of me wanted to collapse. Another part stood a little taller. I hadn't just shut the door on them, I'd shut the door on a lifetime of guilt. It started with a Facebook post, not from me, from my cousin Hannah Blake. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly 7 years. We were close as kids, but drifted after college. That morning, I woke up to a private message sitting quietly in my inbox. Hey, I don't want to overstep, but I heard from your dad. He said, You're refusing to help Brooke because you're still bitter about childhood stuff. I just wanted to check. Is everything okay? I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't even know how to begin. Instead of explaining, I typed, Can we talk? We scheduled a call, and for the first time, I told someone outside of Tessa Reed what had happened. The accident, the hospital, the silence, the confrontation, and the fallout. Hannah Blake didn't interrupt. When I finished, she exhaled slowly and said, That sounds exactly like them. It turned out my parents had started making rounds, quietly poisoning the family tree, painting me as selfish, vindictive, ungrateful for all they've done. They told everyone I was sitting on a pile of cash while Brooke was drowning, that I was letting my sister's life crumble because of old grudges. They'd left out the part about not visiting me in the hospital. They'd left out the part about demanding money like it was owed. But something unexpected happened. People didn't buy it. Not this time. Because apparently I wasn't the only one. Hannah Blake told me that when Brooke's startup was crashing last year, she had borrowed money from our Aunt Marjorie Wells. Thousands. Promised to pay it back in 2 months. It never came. When Marjorie Wells asked about it, my father told the family Marjorie Wells was spiteful and jealous of their success. They stopped inviting her to holidays. Another cousin, someone I barely remembered from childhood, messaged me the next day. I always wondered why your parents acted like you weren't there. I saw it when we were kids. I'm sorry I didn't say anything. And then came the most unexpected one. A message from Uncle Brian, my dad's younger brother. Your dad hasn't changed. He always covered for Brooke. I cut ties years ago. But you didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped playing their game. My inbox slowly filled up. Stories, regrets, apologies. It was overwhelming, like a chorus of voices. I didn't know I needed finally speaking in unison. I showed Tessa Reed one message. She smiled and said, Told you. Truth echoes. My parents didn't reach out again, not directly. But I did hear from a mutual family friend that they were furious, embarrassed that their social circle had started to shrink. People questioning them, asking what really happened. They couldn't control the story anymore. They couldn't spin me into a villain when the truth was multiplying. And Brooke, she sent me a single text. I hope you're happy you destroyed this family. I didn't reply because I hadn't destroyed anything. They had built our family on imbalance, on silence, on one child being the sun and the other a shadow. All I did was step into the light. That week, Hannah Blake invited me to a small family BBQ. No parents, no Brooke, just cousins, aunts, uncles who wanted peace. I almost said no, but then I remembered what Tessa Reid told me. You don't owe anyone your pain, but you do deserve connection. So I said yes. At the BBQ, Aunt Marjorie Wells hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might re-crack. Uncle Brian grilled salmon and called me the bravest damn Collins. It wasn't a dramatic reconciliation. It wasn't a movie moment, but it was real. And as I sat on a patio chair in the sun, laughing with people who finally saw me, I realized something. I hadn't lost my family. I had finally found the part of it that knew how to love. It's been a month since the barbecue. I haven't heard from my parents. Not a call, not a text. Brooke's number is blocked. The silence used to terrify me. That gnawing, endless quiet that made me wonder if I'd made a mistake, but now it feels like air, fresh, unpressurized mine. I changed the locks on my apartment. I updated my emergency contacts at the hospital. Tessa Reid is now at the top of the list. I even removed my family name from my voicemail. Just my first name now. You've reached Avery. Leave a message. Because for the first time, I'm not a Collins shadow. I'm just Avery. I started therapy. My therapist says, I've been in survival mode for years, tiptoeing around people who only showed love when it served them. She helped me name something I hadn't been able to. Emotional neglect. The thing is, once you name it, you can finally choose not to carry it anymore. Last week, I transferred part of my savings into a fund. Not for anyone else, not for emergencies, but for me. Travel Rest may be a cabin for a week in the woods. Silence, but the good kind. Mia is planning a road trip and asked if I want to join. I didn't hesitate. I want to drive again to reclaim the road that nearly killed me and remind myself that I'm still here, still in control, still choosing. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I had said yes. If I'd handed over the money, if I'd swallowed my anger, if I'd played the role they wanted one last time, would they have thanked me? Probably not. Would they have respected me? Definitely not. They would have pocketed my sacrifice, smiled politely, and walked away until the next emergency. But I didn't say yes. I said no. And that one word didn't make me cruel. It made me free. Because love shouldn't require pain. Family shouldn't demand silence. And being someone's daughter should never mean disappearing inside their expectations. So no, I'm not sorry. I'm not ashamed. I'm not theirs anymore. I'm mine.